Welcome to the Adventure Island podcast hosted by Ballyhass, a podcast where we dive into this week's outdoor news, look at why we should all be getting active outdoors, providing inspiration for outdoor adventures, travel destinations, fringe outdoor sports and local destinations and characters. This podcast is released every Friday following our newsletter on Thursday. Please sign up with the link below on all our podcast providers. Nice one, everyone. We are back up and running again with the Adventure Island podcast. So this is our second week. My name is Eoghan McCarthy and I'm joined by my co-host there, Paul McCabe. Week two. So we're still new to what we enjoyed last week. If it's your first time here, or your first time listening, we do have that other episode. And as the intro kind of says, look, we're everything outdoors. We're trying to provide inspiration, provide a little bit of commentary on what's going on in the outdoor industry. We both work for Ballyhass Adventure Group, and that's one of the kind of core values and missions of the company. So we want to kind of expand it a little bit and have a bit of a talking point of anything outdoors, really. You enjoyed yourself last week, Paul? Are you talked out?
Yeah, it was very good. I definitely the first time I'd say I did podcast or anything of that nature. Found out I say like and a lot. So hopefully now this week I won't be saying those common words that we all get stuck on the first time someone starts listening to us. So no, very enjoyable. Great to talk about the outdoors and talk about what's going on, and hopefully we entertain you who'd listened to us last week.
Well, that's it. I mean, look, we're still in. If we're listening back to this in a few weeks or months' time, we're still in the depths of a lockdown. And you and I hosted a webinar on our summer camps last night, and that was an interesting conversation to have when it was like howling wind outside and the snow pelting against the window, and we were talking about how important it is to get your kids outdoors in the summer. So it is just kind of that time of the year. I thought the conversation was interesting last week, especially on the staycations, and I think we're going to do a little bit of a recommendation towards the end of this podcast again, aren't we? About some recommendations of where you might think about going, because at this point, it's pretty obvious we're going to be here in Ireland for the rest of the year. Large scale international travel has pretty much been confirmed off the cards. We're still, hoping that we can even get away for our staycations, but as it is, we're definitely looking forward to it. If you listened to last week, we definitely have concerns about it. And Paul, I have to start this week because it was after we recorded a podcast, and I think you know what's coming up, but after we recorded a podcast, and we're here on Zoom, guys, so I'm going to share my screen, but you're for those listening in, you're going to hear this one as well, and then for those on YouTube, I think you'll see it. Rory Stories, I don't know if you know him. He's a comedian essentially. That's
kind of
GAA based, is he?
Yeah, County Meath is where he's based, Ashburn, so he's kind of close to the Dublin border.
I don't think he's got a little skit, right? It's a minute long, and I want to listen to it because I was like, that was our podcast. He literally summed our podcast up and definitely the concerns over our staycations in 1 minute. So here you go. You'll be able to hear it. It's basically, he's, for those listening in, it's booking a holiday in 2019 versus booking a holiday in summer 2021. It's a minute long. I think it's great.
Right, okay, I have Marbella here for us for 7 days, all inclusive, whatever you want to do, free drink, trips, the whole lot, $3,000. What do you think?
What about the beach clubs?
Yeah, beach clubs included, it's the whole shebang. Flights, accommodation.
Yeah, go for that.
Marbella, like proper sun, proper beach parties, proper pool parties, everything. Even trips, the whole lot. Will I do it?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'll book that, yeah. Right, I might have a deal here.
No way.
Yeah, it's don't get your hopes up.
Why, what is it?
I reckon I'm after securing a caravan in Clare for $2,500 for 4 days.
No way.
Yeah. Just let me read the terms and conditions. But I reckon, COVID restrictions I heard that we might be able to have a can outside the front of the caravan.
Get on that quick.
I know. Just give me time. It's too good to be true. There's so many fucking people trying to book it, but just give me time.
No, get on it quick.
Don't get too excited. Just I get it done, right?
It literally just cracks me up every time. Doesn't it just epitomize the issues that could be coming up? And we might be able to have a can in front of the caravan. I can just see myself in that position, and that's the problem. That's why I think it's just so close to home. But oh man, all my concerns wrapped up in 1 minute sketch there for me. It was brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's kind of what people are fearing with the staycation period now this summer is, with the tourism, kind of with Fáilte Ireland, the tourism boards and all that, kind of trying to catch up, because it's probably the first time they've been out and been able to advertise and get some revenue coming in. So that's all our big fear. But a little bit, Owen, yourself, you were on a webinar there with Fáilte Ireland there recently, and there was some good news about that, and kind of good news about the worries that people have with that. Wasn't that, didn't they kind of?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, there's a lot of supports coming through, which will, and they've just launched this week, actually, only in the last day or two. So, and really, really impressive supports, to be honest. It's I wouldn't, not really that I want to get into the different schemes and that kind of stuff. That's not what we're about today, but just to give a quick overview, there's wage support schemes, and then there's the CRSS, which is basically a fixed cost support scheme, for want of a better description. And a lot of the tourism sector didn't qualify for that because it revolved around a lot of fixed premises and a lot of, especially the outdoor activity providers didn't particularly have that, or were moving around to different locations. So that was a big support they were missing. But Fáilte Ireland and the tourism have stepped in, and we actually just only on Monday or Tuesday we were on webinars to show those, to see what kind of, or to see how to apply for those. And it looks pretty straightforward, and it looks that it should really fill a gap in the market there for providers. So we're hoping that if these supports come in, then there's no reason for those $2,000 4-day Clare caravan trips where it can be just your normal price and go down and enjoy your can in front of it. And I think it'll be good. The
one thing I've noticed as well is with people I've talked to, there's a lot of people still looking forward to these staycations and looking forward to the summer, of getting out in Ireland. I think last summer, from my opinion, people really grasped that, although they may have hated the word kind of because they heard it so much, the staycations. But I think from my experience anyway, that people really grasped the beauties of Ireland and, getting outdoors in Ireland, because we talked a little bit last week about how, Ireland is renowned in the international scene. So I think people are not as worried this year, hopefully. I think with not getting their abroad holidays, they're kind of getting happy with their week in Kerry or their week in Clare or the week in the Wild Atlantic Way. And I want to promote there the Ireland's Ancient East and the Ireland's Hidden Heartlands, and even Northern Ireland. People went on their staycations there last year. So
even Northern Ireland.
Even Northern Ireland.
No, I love it. I love it up there. Belfast and all that coast is amazing. But Eoghan and Paul, there's a reason we call this podcast the Adventure Island. And I mean, you and I have both seen the potential that this island has, as it's particularly an adventure destination. And I mean, that's the core to this podcast as well, is those outdoor activities, those outdoor sports. And it's actually kind of I'm segueing kind of into what I want to talk about really for this podcast. And it is that kind of outdoor sports and the impact that COVID-19 and the pandemic over the last couple of seasons could potentially have. And I'm not making any assumptions but I think it's interesting. Last night in our webinar, we highlighted a quote from that the Irish Association for Adventure Tourism tweeted, and it was on an ITIC, which is a tourism body. They did a big conference as well this week that I missed out on, but I'll be watching back on, so I might have a bit more on that next week. it was from Professor Luke O'Neill, who's obviously a big profile at the moment. Outdoors is great. There's a 19-fold decrease in risk by just going outdoors, you know? And like, I mean, we were obviously using that quote for our summer camp and to kind of instill a bit of confidence. And, you know, you don't want to hang all your hopes and dreams on one particular quote. And I think, you know, I think this might have been particularly in relation to, well, I don't know what it was this quote, but there was definitely other quotes coming out in relation to, say, the GA and which is in the news this week in terms of whether it's classified as an elite sport and should there be training allowed.
Yeah.
And obviously that's outdoors, so you know it's got that element of safety in it. But I mean, if you're crowded together outdoors and you're within your 2 meters for more than 15 meters, you know, it's safe, or it's like the outdoors is safer but not safe in certain circumstances. So we have to remember that we can't just blanket say that the outdoors is super safe, you know. But I mean, I do think at the same time that conversation between the GA outdoors being safe and just the outdoors being safe is an interesting one, because it must, like, I mean, there must be a knock-on effect here to outdoor sports, to individual outdoor sports. And the reason I want to bring it up and discuss it is we've seen it a lot through the activity centers, and anyone working in an activity center will definitely tell you that our sports appeal to a certain, if we talk about the younger population in particularly, you know, the school age kind of kids, there's a certain amount of people that absolutely thrive when they get to these individual outdoor sports. And by those, I mean things like rock climbing or climbing activities, kayaking, because you're in a boat by yourself. You know, we do zip lining, we do wakeboarding, we do stand-up paddle boarding. These are all things you can do by yourself. Now, we don't obviously do them by ourselves. We do them in groups, and it's the shared experience of doing these things. But you can do it in such a safe environment, even in the current circumstances, that they will have to become more the go-to. And I think, again, like the initial one of being a GA conversation, like we're in a big GA area, so obviously, like, people are going to be drawn and have big allegiances to organized team sports. But there's a certain amount of the population that are thriving and are looking for these individual sports and these niche sports and these which tend to be outdoors, and they're thriving in it. And like, you've seen that down in Coachford and stuff. You'd agree with that in terms of those people coming in and they're within this. They might not like team sports, but say they're doing a rock climb, they get to the top on their own. They have to do it by themselves. No one else is going to climb for them. They get to the top. They have this amazing feeling going, that was class. I've conquered my fear. I've done more than I thought I could have. And then the rest of the group, or whoever's just happened to be there on the day, is legitimately really happy and cheering. And I mean, that's amazing. For me, that's huge, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of it is with access as well, like, because the most popular sports will always be the ones that are kind of, not to say in your face, but the ones you'll see the most. And it's always going to be, you know, your GA, your soccer, your rugby union. They're always going to be the most popular sports, but they're always not going to be the sports that people, you know, really thrive on and what they really like. And I think the kayaking is a great example there. We did kayak camps there last year, and they proved very popular with people who didn't even play football or play hurling or play any of those sports. So definitely I'd have to agree with the fact that I think the niche sports, maybe they could be called, in, like, especially with rock climbing in Mallow, and even abseiling, you know, is a very popular sport as well down in Mallow. Like, these kind of sports are very suited for different type of people, especially some people who like individual sports a lot as well. You have you know, a lot of people who are kind of individual competitors, you know, who might be into, say, if they're into MMA or into, you know, into darts or snooker or something like along them lines. I know they're indoor sports, but something that's individual. I think
we could get into a debate about darts as a sport there for the next. we might avoid that one.
I remember, and I know it's a little bit later in the podcast, but I remember they were talking about bringing darts into the Olympics. So I remember they interviewed Phil Taylor on bringing darts into the Olympics. So I don't know, take that what you take that of how you'll take it, but
I think you really hit on a point there of the access to these sports. Like we have the wake park there, which is really my passion of all the sports we do. It's the one that I do most. It's the one that I really want to get down to and do on a regular basis. And I really think that, like, I'm just going, why isn't everyone doing this? Like, I would have killed for a cable wake park to be on my doorstep when I was 10 to 14 and being able to access it regularly, but you see, I guess these facilities are there now. So, I mean, there just has to be a knock-on effect. I can't see it not. And like, to what extent is what I'm wondering, I guess, like, I mean, people are going to get back. So, and you can see the government being so, I was going to say sketchy, but not sketchy, but so conservative, I guess, in reopening the country. That, they were bitten badly by opening too fast previously, so they're going to have to do a slow rollout. That's almost guaranteed. And what are the first, these individuals, like, and I mean, they use golf as the one, as I think is kind of like the yardstick in going, oh, golf courses are open because it's individual and you're outdoors and you're not close to guys. But I mean, they don't open rock climbing with golf, but it's the exact same, you know what I mean? And it's the same with wakeboarding, and the same with paddleboarding, the same with kayaking. It's very much, now there's safety issues involved in all these. I'm not you can't overly generalize. But like, like what I discussed last week with Ireland has an opportunity from a staycation point of view. I think these sports have such an amazing opportunity in the next year or two to capitalize on this, on what's going to be only, like, I mean, think about all the perfect storm that's coming together in what people want to do, in terms of, they want to get outdoors, they want to get active because they've been cooped up, they've been indoors, they want to do something different because we've been doing the same thing over and over again. They've been exposed to so much podcasts and videos and this discussing these things. And to be fair, like, we even discussed the X Games last week, for instance. I mean, that was just a great example of social media presenting a sport, I thought, so I think we could be on the cusp of something great. I know we at Ballyhass are obviously building up to that as well. Like, I think we've identified it, and starting to do a whole series of learn to sports. So get into kayak, we'll teach you, we'll run courses and try and educate you so you can continue kayaking, you can continue stand-up paddleboarding, you can continue wakeboarding. But do you get that feeling? Because I just think I can't quite quantify it, or can't quite put my finger on, but I just think there's some opportunity here, and it's like one of these things you just don't want to miss out on it, hey?
And I completely agree, and I think it is happening, and especially just even from our experience, even at Ballyhass, that there is, even at the webinar there last night, there's a brewing feeling with the people that were attending that, and they were getting ready to get their kids into the summer camps. And we've always said that we are a good introduction center, everything. We're very good at introducing kids and people and adults into the outdoors. So like, that's kind of our bit of our bread and butter. So we can see it. So I can imagine definitely all around the country, whether it's north, south, east, west, everyone's in the same, looking to do, God, I've never tried wakeboarding, or I've never tried rock climbing, I've never tried kayaking. God, I'm going to try that now when we get out of this, and we're able to go out and visit different parts of Ireland. So definitely I can see it brewing. There's no doubt. I think we're going to see something amazing, and see people trying stuff that are new, especially in Ballyhass. We'll see people who are trying stuff new, and who maybe more than other years, I think.
I guess it's one of these opportunities. I suppose that's why I want to bring it. It's one of these that it could be easily missed as well, and we've already, in 2 podcasts, we talked about difficulty accessing the outdoors, difficulty on education of how to get outdoors, where to get outdoors. I hope we don't miss this opportunity. I hope the adventure community seizes it and really and tries to. We've identified actually a good point on this one is like I think. And it's something that I look at if we're looking at a new activity to add to Ballyhass is there's you need to see progression. Any sport with a quick progression curve, like is going to be very popular, you know. So like the wakeboarding is a prime example. Like we'll get you up and standing immediately. Pretty much in your first lesson, you know what I mean, or very close to it. By in 6 lessons, we say we're going to get you over a jump and a kicker. Like, I know, bearing in mind you're going at 25 miles an hour, so just standing up on a board gets you buzzed, you know. So it's this combination of like getting you buzzed and seeing that next level. So I always refer to it as like building blocks. So you learn one the start, and then you just add the next thing. You just need to learn it and combine it, and you've got a whole new trick and a whole new skill, and then you're buzzing because you're like, yes, I'm going to learn that the next time. And all these, I think that's kind of the adventure sports. You could put it out to surfing and stuff as well. The first time you like stand up at a board, you remember and you're buzzed and you're like, that's class. And I'll go out again for another 4 hours until I get there. But that's what for me is like, if there's sports around the place that can create, and I think we've made our mission one of the ways we're trying to fulfill our mission is through education. And by education, we mean not just education on our products, but educating people into understanding how to get outdoors more, how to access it, how to where to do it, go to other providers, go to other countries, whatever it takes to get these people hooked. And coming back to why I think this is such a good opportunity is that the stigma against these sports, in one sense, it's like, oh, why aren't you playing GA? Like, you're going rock climbing. Oh, you've got to play, you know, you got to play your championship the weekend, you know. And I mean, like, what an unbelievable GA organization is, and all sports teams to get people active outdoors. So you can't take away from it, but it's just this subset of people that are not fitted for it, you know.
And it can definitely happen because, like, even there, I would have grew up in a massive GAA area, played GAA and all the way growing up, but I definitely feel like I lived beside the water, and you know, when I was a big lover of kayaking, did a little bit of water skiing and wakeboarding when I was younger, and I always felt that was where a little bit my passion lied. You know, I always had a bit of a passion for it. I think niche sports do that. I think when you're doing something maybe that other people are not doing, you find a bit of a buzz out of it, being like, oh, I got up. It took me 5 times on the back of the boat to get up on the wakeboard, but I'm definitely the only person in this area that can do this, you know? So there is a bit of a buzz about it, I think. And I think there is pressures, you know, of...
there's that progression curve and a very low bar, which makes thank
God for cable wakeboarding. I think I heard arms straight, knees bent, I'd say, you know, for a good solid 5 hours when I started water skiing for the first time.
That is something you're going to hear over and over again. But it's interesting, right? I think it's just an interesting conversation to be had. And if there's any bit of awareness that can go out about it, going, this is the year to get into something, you know. Everyone's building up for it. Everyone is ready to do something. And I know you mentioned the Olympics earlier, and that was kind of something. Like, there's 4 new sports, and I kind of only discovered this because I was doing research for our newsletter that goes out on Thursdays, you know, and I'm always looking for interesting people to follow. So I was following a female English rock climber, Coxie, I think is her name. Really interesting. It's in one of our previous newsletters, I think 2 weeks ago. But she's just got a great channel. But she's training to be she's training for the Olympics, of which 4 new sports going in there. Karate being one, which is interesting when you mentioned MMA earlier, being a kind of an individual one. Then we have surfing, skateboarding, and rock climbing. And I mean, so out of 4 new sports, I think 3 of those, well, they're all kind of individual sports, and then 3 of them are outdoor, active, niche sports, kind of what we're talking about. So I think that's really interesting in terms of, like, I mean, would you consider the Olympics that kind of, are they on point with the almost what's in vogue or what sports are emerging. They obviously must be, because they do their research. And I know I've been involved, wakeboarding is trying to get into the Olympics at the moment.
I think they're very open. One thing I found about the Olympics, definitely, when they're, and I know I made the joke about the darts going in, but they are very open to different sports going into the Olympics. Like golf was a big one, getting that into the Olympics, because people, always, compare the Olympics with everyone's an athlete, and this, like, and what's the definition of an athlete, and, people would have said, golf, like, is that underneath the athlete, some of them, underneath the athlete kind of persona. So, I think...
Well, the golf is another interesting one, because it's professional. Like clearly
Exactly.
professional with big money in it, where you look at like rock climbing, skateboarding, surfing, there's money, but there's not masses of money, so it's I think that's almost a different conversation from professional to it, but
I think the conversation as well, that what they'll be, I think what will happen is whatever country has a very good cultural backing. It's a bit like Ireland, in the rowing and the boxing. But if they have a good cultural backing of it, usually the state will try and back it. And I think that's when people like I'd say America and the skateboarding will really thrive in that, because they'll put a bit of money into the back of it. And then, amateur skateboarders will start earning like a salary, where they will aim for the 3-4 years of getting to the Olympics. So it's a great opportunity for people who are even amateur skateboarders now. It's great news for them,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's great, because again, this I'm actually I'm just going to play this in the background for the guys on YouTube. But what I'm showing here is it's a skateboarder. It's a female Brazilian skateboarder, Leticia Bufoni. I probably murdered her name. Well, I think this is so cool, right? She's just like, she's super cool, really entertaining. And this will give you an idea of where skateboarding is, because I think this we're watching a video here in the background where she's going through her backyard skate park. It's almost like an episode of MTV Cribs back in the day.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, sponsored by Nike. I think she's doing super well. And this shows the power of the Olympics to these sports, that like, she's training hard for the Olympics. But obviously X Games and stuff, like similar to just the Summer X Games, would have been a big one for her, like, but like super cool. Like, I think this is what I mean about media and kind of stuff, highlighting these sports, taking the stigma out of it, going, this is something we should all be doing, exposing our families to. And hell, someday we could end up in a LA with a mini skate park in our backyard and a pool. It wouldn't be too bad, eh? So I think it's just cool. Like I just, again, it's one of these things that I'm just excited to see, and I hope this year we'll get a lot in. The rock climbing is the interesting one, actually, from if you look at how it also, I suppose, when we're talking about the Olympics and these sports, the rock climbing is a really interesting one, because it's changed. Like, so that girl is really interesting to follow, the British girl doing it, because there's different styles of rock climbing, so a lot of people are doing indoor bouldering climbing. So bouldering, for those who don't know, is it's without ropes on short walls with big pads underneath it. So there's all these different routes, but you're never more than a couple of meters off the ground. So if you fall onto the pads, and it's good, but it's really challenging and really cool to see, but in the Olympics, they put in three. It's kind of like, I think they call it like a triathlon or a tri format, where there's 3 different disciplines. One being speed climbing, where literally it's like they're like spider people sprinting up the walls on the exact same route every time. The next one's bouldering. I think the third one's kind of traditional climbing with ropes. So it's pushing the sport as well. It's creating this framework that people can work towards and get better at. And it's an interesting one, because I'm little involved in wakeboarding and aware of the conversations how wakeboarding can get into the Olympics. And I think it's missing that framework and missing how to keep it structured from a fair judging point of view and this kind of stuff. So it's just interesting. But I think, like, check her out. I'll put that video of Leticia Bufoni in in the description down below and go check it out and see where we're at with it. But again, it's just, I get an interesting time for me anyway.
Yeah, no, it's I think skateboarding it'll prove to be very successful, I think, in the Olympics. It's just one of them, it's a niche sport, but it's one of them sports that is quite common as well, especially in the States. It's where, you know, you'd mostly refer it with. But
Well, there's lots of skate parks around Ireland now as well.
there's one in Ballincollig here where I'm living in Cork. You know, there's a skate
jammers,
park
right?
there. Can I say again?
It's jammers most of the time.
It's jammed most of the time, and like you see people go down on the paths here, going skateboarding. You know, it is quite popular. It's more popular than people think, but it's under that niche sport maybe a little bit still.
There's very little barriers to entry on it. You know, how much is, you know, you can get a very entry level skateboard for less than €100 probably, and you can go anywhere and do anything. That's another issue with the wakeboarding. There's 3 cable wakeboarding facilities in Ireland at the moment. Well, 2 in Ireland, 1 in Northern Ireland. So the access to it, even though cable is infinitely more accessible than boat wakeboarding. We'll be doing a webinar on that actually where we'll get into it, but it's just an accessibility point of view as well. And golf, when you mention it, how accessible really is golf to people? There is golf courses everywhere, but obviously there's a high price point entry to the sport, which again, these outdoor rock climbing, surfing, skateboarding, they're using the natural environs, so it's affordable. You know.
What I like about my hope for this podcast as well, and what I like about it is that we introduce people listening to some of these people that we're showing, and I think inspiration plays a lot in it as well. We've all, any sport we've tried, we're looking at somebody else and saying, God, I would love to try that. And hopefully this is kind of a bit of an inspiration for some people to, God, even looking at that, being like, I'm gonna buy a skateboard now, you know. And that's what kind of the hope is to explore these niche sports and see what people think about them, and you know, explore them really, you know.
Yeah, unreal. Well, it'll be interesting to watch. We'll definitely come back to it over the series this year and see if we're seeing any impacts. I know we'll you know, we can highlight, well, that's not what the podcast is for, to highlight our products, but there will definitely be other ways we'll see direct impact, so we can actually have a pretty kind of live commentary to see, is that coming to fruition in terms of, is there a bigger attendance, is there a bigger participation rate in these sports? And hopefully we can do our bit to not only get that first introductory one, but also get them out and get them exploring and show them what else can be done on this adventure island. Look, let's kind of let's finish up on some of our recommendations. We kind of wanted to do a little bit of a staycation or an outdoor environment that we wanted to recommend. Do you want, like, actually, and as funny as enough, we both came to this with kind of very similar destinations. So do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So one of my recommendations, I think, especially when I kind of get away, maybe back up kind of the country and up north, is this place called the Silent Valley Reservoir. It's near the Mourne, it's in the Mourne Mountains, but it's absolutely beautiful and the views are incredible. And I follow Discover Northern Ireland on Instagram, and they're constantly putting the Mourne Mountains up, and it's just one of these places that I think I would be really, really looking forward to going to see. And as you can see, like, the scenery is just fantastic, and even these kind of sort of these like, they have a dam down there, and they have all these hydroelectric kind of systems they have down there. Like, you can even see in this, you know, this kind of sort of looks like a bit of a whirlpool, but it's just,
that's nuts, isn't it? It's a crazy there's an aerial shot of it as well, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you can see even there, like, there's some really good shots.
For those listening, we're doing is scrolling down through the Instagram account for this, but it's just,
yeah, so it's called, if you type in Silent Valley Reservoir, you'll see it. And no, the views are beautiful. I think that's on my staycation list. It's definitely something that I'm hoping to, when I get back up the country, a place I'm hoping to visit.
Well, interestingly, I don't know if anyone follows the Ballyhass Mallow Facebook page, but I would have shared someone I've admired for quite a bit. It's actually another adventure center, Carlingford Adventure Center in Carlingford. in the mornings, which was a funny one when we both came to the table this morning, that we were picking the same area. Carlingford Loch, or I think it's called Carlingford, or the Carlingford village or town, or I've driven through. I haven't stayed there, but the town itself is amazing. I'm actually from Kinsale originally, and it's a small seaside town, and like Carlingford definitely had that kind of a vibe. Small little streets, cool little pubs, cool little restaurants. Hopefully we'll be able to get back into them, but even if we don't, I think Carlingford is a great recommendation for somewhere for a family, somewhere for adventurous couples. I think you're in the Mourns or at the base of the Mourns, so if you want to go off hiking, you can do that. What we were watching here in the background is basically a video on the Carlingford Centre itself. And I mean, they have a lot. They actually, I think they're quite similar in offerings, I guess. They have a big Skatepark, which is a kind of a high ropes, but a purpose-built one on poles, which is really interesting. And I think, without getting into too big another topic, it's an interesting one because I would consider Ballyhass a bit of an attraction, a kind of, somewhere between OEC, Outdoor Education Centre, and not a theme park, but we're filling this weird gap in between where we can get through quite a lot of bodies, offer that great first introductory experience. And I think Carlingford seems to be quite a bit on that. They have a big residential outdoor centre and a hostel there, and they do the land, water, and sky is even very similar in terms of what they offer to what we offer. But it just looks really cool. I think if you're looking for destinations this year, I think I got, like, even Carlingford got a couple of awards as places to visit this year. So put it on your destination list for my mind. That's up on the Ballyhass Mallow Facebook page. Anyway, if you want to check out that video, they're very thankful for their staff and for their local clients, of which obviously we infinitely are as well, because they're the only reason we, after a good season or a successful season in a dangerous year, we'll call it, last year, was all due to the hard work of our staff coming in and facilitating in difficult conditions, and then the local customers coming back. So it was cool to see them just literally come on and say thanks a million, because it's definitely something you and I looked at and we're like, we'd love to do a video like that, or love to kind of reach out and do that as well. So that is for sure my recommendation. And I'm going to do one more actually, Paul, because of your recommendation, actually, your dams, that like Silent Valley Dam, right?
Yeah, Silent Valley, yeah.
Silent Valley Dam, right? And it looks so cool. And I think for anyone, and you're talking about you go walking down by the Inniscarra Dam quite a bit, don't you? Which is just, if anyone's been down there, it's just worth a walk if you're in the locality, you can get there. Absolutely. Because it's so cool, right? And there's a walk down by the river there. There's a little
small loop walk. It's probably about 3 kilometers if you did the loop. But it's beautiful, and especially the fact that we're in a 5K restrictions, and we're in the vicinity of Ballincollig. I definitely recommend, if you're anywhere in the locality or the area, it's just really gorgeous. It's at the Sounds, and they have a small waterfall down there as well, which is just beautiful too. Really, really nice place. Bit of a hidden gem, because it's not really signposted to go down there. There's the gates to the dam, and it looks like, it's a bit of a do not entry, but there is a car park down there. If you're down there, drive down there. It's beautiful. So my basically final recommendation is this podcast, I think, which is a really good watch, and something I want to do is offer just a bit of entertainment and a bit of something to educate yourself on the back of. It's called, I'm going to share my screen again there for the guys on YouTube. But for those listening, it's a Patagonia film, a company that's that I admire a whole heap for their ethos and values, and their active works, I guess, for want of a better one. But this is such an interesting film, right? It's called Damnation. And it looks in particular in the dam networks in the US, right? And it looks at the damage the dams have done to local rivers. And now that a lot of them are being decommissioned, it's how they actually extract them, take them out. And then there's studies showing that if you can take out the dams, that the rivers do recover, the wildlife recovers, the salmon and the salmon runs start coming back to these rivers. But it's a concept
that like never came across my mind, taking down dams. You know, you see them going up, and well, you don't see them going up really anymore. They're kind of a thing, kind of the past now as well. I don't know how like you get around putting in a dam these days, but like there's literally thousands of dams in America at the moment that they're trying to take down, and it costs a fortune to do it. So there's literally charity drives to raise money to take these dams down. And then of course, it being the States and it being completely this polarized nation as is at the moment, there's also this other pro dam people that are coming into the film. So it's a proper film. You'll find it on YouTube. It's called Damnation. Again, it's playing in the background there for guys, and we'll put a link down below and in the podcast description. But I would say if you can just stream it to your TV, kick back, super interesting. You know, it's kind of one of those topics that like we're all about embracing the outdoors, and that has such an impact on our adventure areas that it's just interesting. It's just again, just last recommendation for the podcast.
I promise I don't get too salesy or anything in these podcasts, but on our tour, our expedition tour down in Coachford, we talk a little bit about that. It's one of the main topics on the tour, is talking about the impact of the reservoir on the environment when they were being built in the 1950s. So we do talk a little bit about that, and it's very, very interesting, the history of the Inniscarra reservoir, you know, when we talk about one that's near us, and kind of the impact it had when the ESB were building it in the 1950s. So that's my sales pitch.
I like it. Okay, I think that's been you've listened to us long enough, and our ramblings. So again, I think another podcast that is what I think would be probably quite typical of what it will be going forward. We'll be just looking at everything outdoors. We'd love to hear if you'd like to hear anything in particular, or like us to talk about, or anything, or especially from our experience within the outdoor industry. Just drop a comment down below. If you could rate it up in our in equal, we're live on everything now. So we were slow on Apple last week, but we're up on Apple now, Spotify, and you can listen to us online as well. So it'll be really great to get your feedback. And if you'd like to do anything, owen@ballyhasslakes.ie is my email. Drop me a line, and it would be great. And as you said, Paul, I think it would be cool to get some live interviews and stuff as we go forward, and really start kind of educating and spreading the news. And hopefully we're all outdoors, and people will be listening to this on a kayak or a mountain bike or cycling somewhere anyway. So that's it for this week, guys. For episode 2, we will be back next Friday. Don't forget to we'll also have a link to sign up to our newsletter, which comes out every Thursday, which has kind of links, articles, what we're reading. Tim this week has some really cool stuff, Netflix recommendations on mountain biking, and he also goes into the tiny home van conversion dark hole that can be found on YouTube. But super interesting, and I think maybe during this lockdown could be something that keeps people inspired and entertained. So thanks very much, guys.
All right, thanks guys, cheers.
See you next week.